How do we define the history of a place? Surveying the land tells a pretty good story. Buildings show their age, cracked roads imply traffic. Statues are erected so we don't forget what we want to remember. But all of this was built on top of the earth, precisely designed to express certain truths and conceal others. If you look out on that land, what stories aren't being told? What evidence was erased? What did we decide to forget? Seattle. When does the history of the city truly begin? Certainly not with the Duwamish people of Salish ethnicity, who called this place their home for 10,000 years. No. Perhaps the history of Seattle truly began when George Vancouver sailed into the maritime outlet he would later name the Puget Sound and surveyed its lands, reporting back stories of a sparsely populated coastline dotted with decaying wooden structures and a few disease-ridden natives. These reports led to land grabs and settlements across the Northwest. But Seattle wasn't settled until 1851, when Arthur Denny led his party of settlers to land right here on Alki Point. They perceived the land exactly as their predecessors commanded them to. The evidence of life, culture, and tradition didn't signify to Denny a vast history prior to his arrival, but a few dark smudges on an otherwise blank canvas upon which he could build the new world. And build they did. After a few short years of cohabitation fraught with death and sickness for the Duwamish people, they were forced out of their home through violence and empty symbolic treaties. The history of this place was reborn, written over. The bounty of its original inhabitants was taken by its new ones and capriciously doled out back to them in acts of supposed generosity. Meanwhile, generations were building their identities on the blank canvas they assumed they were born into, building a history they were confident belonged exclusively to them. The only thing that stayed the same was the constant rate of unrelenting change.
Yeah, but he doesn't change. Yeah, she won't make him. Like, even if she tried, he would not listen to her. Yeah, I mean, I hope today's different, but yeah, you're right. You're right. Okay. I see her. I'll call you later. Okay. Bye.
I was like last night and just kind of overreacted, so it's like not that big of a deal.
No, I'm glad you called, but like, what happened? What did he do?
Yeah, it's stupid. Last night, Ed and I were at the Chiefs and we were just like super fucked up, and I ended up doing a lot of coke off the weed.
Oh, God, no, not sweet coke.
Yeah, really gross. But after that, Ed went home and I Ubered to his place and ended up telling him about the coke, and he just got super mad, thought it was disgusting, which like I get because I don't do drugs, and like, I told him I don't do drugs, but I was just fucked up and like wanted to try it. But then we got in this huge argument, and I ended up calling you, and I was just like in a really bad mood, and really drunk, but I'm sorry I called you, I was just venting.
But that's not your fault at all. Plus, he literally takes bars all the time. Last time he was on Xanax, he punched a hole through your basement wall. So for him to yell at you for doing coke is so out of line.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's fine, I'll go. Whatever, it's not a big deal.
So you guys talked then. Did he apologize to you?
I mean, he doesn't have to apologize. It's both of us, so we just need to work on it together.
Oh, both of you? Was it both of you when he gave you syphilis? Or when his ex-girlfriend was cyberbullying you and he gaslit you? Or what about junior year when he wrote all of his honors English essays because he was too stressed about basketball? Maybe that one was both of you.
I mean, Margaret, you don't know everything that goes on in our relationship, though.
Okay, you're right, but you do need to stand up for yourself a little bit.
Look, I'm the only one that talks to his sister when he doesn't pick up her calls. I'm literally the only one he talks to any of the shit in his life about. And you don't want to hear this, Moog, but I am responsible for him. And if I start taking everything super personally, it's just going to make everything worse.
I get that. But it's not your job to control him. And his problems don't justify him being shitty to you.
Just like, you don't know everything, Mogo.
I know. I don't.
Funny, God, what a freaking night. Or when we were leaving in the morning, and these are huge birds. And I was nervous. And that woman was like, "Dear Father's Day." All of us were like, "Oh, good morning."
Was that as I was like, were my pants down? I was peeing. Was that as?
Hands up. Finished peeing. I literally George was like, "Oh, fuck, fuck."
But I swear that woman like came from under that bridge.
Yeah, she definitely did. Or like, what are you talking shit for? We get MLS soccer to like find him and then be like, okay, and we follow DM him. Hey, so sorry, I left my purse at your place.
Is that how you found it?
Yes, that's the place running in Starbucks. I could really need my purse back. Yes, MLS. Yes, I went through MLS Instagram trying to find a soccer player to find his friends. Okay, bye, babes. Love you. We'll hang out later.
Yeah, I love you too.
Okay.
I'll text you later about tonight.
Yeah, let's
okay?
figure it out. Okay, bye.
Bye.
In 1903, thanks to the settlement's position as an essential supply stop during the Klondike Gold Rush, Seattle was rapidly becoming a modern metropolis. The city saw a period of economic prosperity which left local politicians and elites flush with cash. As the population skyrocketed past 100,000, members of Seattle's political sphere wanted to ensure that their growing city would be a modern one. So they hired famous landscape architect John C. Olmsted to design a public park system. Working off of the philosophy of his uncle Frederick, who famously designed Central Park, John created a century-long plan to condemn and purchase large tracts of land throughout town, connecting the northwestern oceanside corner of the land to its southeastern tip, a forested peninsula that jutted into the southern end of the lake. The Olmsted philosophy of landscaping believed that parks lent a certain social elegance and aesthetic beauty to the ugliness of rapidly urbanizing America. If Americans wanted to live among skyscrapers and industrial buildings, we had to convene in nature in order to connect with each other and ourselves. It was necessary for cities to be built like this, so we could retain our humanity. Olmsted's work birthed the public park systems of America, and with them, the idea of untouched, undeveloped land as something that was considered civilized. A cultivated, polished illusion to remind us of the beautiful land we covered with our ambition. But conspicuously missing from this diorama of pre-urbanized America were the people who that land actually belonged to, as though before we built on any of this, it was empty, unoccupied. So when the city of Seattle purchased what had been named the Bailey Peninsula in Lake Washington, they named the ensuing park after William H. Seward, the U.S. Secretary of State, famous for negotiating the purchase of Alaska from Russia. Seattle's public park system had begun, and the natural beauty of the area became a proprietary feature of the city's design. Native land was being protected and maintained, just not for Native people.
Hey, what's up? No, I'm just on a run. Ooh, yeah, I'm down. No, you're good. I just got to Seward, so I'm just kind of wandering around, taking a breather before I head back. Actually, Lars called me today. South Africa. It was kind of a weird conversation, though. Well, he called because he said he wanted to be more distant friends, because what kept us close in the past was that we both had this burning inner desire to make the world a better place, but that's not really the case anymore. Some South African startup, but I mean, it's still a for-profit company. He's not exactly doing missionary work. I don't know, he said he has to stop prioritizing making sacrifices to see me. Whatever that means. Yeah, you're right. Thanks. Hey, guess where I'm standing? Damn. My principal saw me pee her once. Yeah, it was one of my first times being drunk freshman year. I remember I was getting hazed, but I also liked getting hazed because it was just like my sister and her friends hazing me, but I was running around covered in like raw eggs and mayonnaise, and I think I was wearing a diaper too, but I was just with my sister's friend Anna, blacked out when my principal showed up with our local news. Yeah, I guess he was trying to address the media and be transparent about the whole hazing issue. So I think he was doing the right thing, but I mean, at the same time, he did cause a bunch of drunk driving accidents because kids just wanted to run away from him. But anyway, Anna and I just had to pee so badly, so we wandered off into some tree, and he kind of just like followed us to ask if we were okay, and the minute he came into the tree, we just locked eyes, and he was like, "Oh my, I'm so sorry." And I had just started school at the time as a freshman, and I had no idea who he was, and Anna was just kind of like, "Dude, that was our principal." And we didn't want to get caught, so we spent 30 minutes just bushwhacking and trailblazing just to get away from him. And I had cuts all over my legs, but I didn't get suspended, so it was worth it. Yeah, sounds good. Bye.
In the 1950s, the federal government sought to abolish the remaining Native tribes scattered throughout the nation and reclaim valuable land that was ceded to Native Americans over the course of Western colonization. Congress passed policies of termination and relocation, promising a new urban life full of opportunity for American Indians. But incentives of access to public services like education and healthcare were empty. And once natives left the reservation, they no longer qualified for much-needed federal aid. Seattle's indigenous population rose from hundreds to thousands, and Native Americans were among the most impoverished and underserved citizens in the city. In 1970, after the federal government declared the military base Fort Lawton in the northwestern corner of the city to be a surplus land available for purchase at a heavily discounted price, Seattle's urban Indians mobilized. Led by activist Bernie Whitebear, over 100 indigenous activists occupied and scaled the fort, demanding that the land be returned to them. After a violent confrontation with military police, the group formed an encampment around the fort named Resurrection City. The protest persisted in the face of police and military opposition for 3 weeks. Even after the encampment was taken down, the movement continued. Whitebear's cause gained the sympathy of public opinion and even the support of Jane Fonda. With that leverage, Whitebear was able to enter a year-long negotiation with local officials that culminated in an indigenous cultural and educational center on the land funded and leased by the city. Over 7 years after the initial protest, the Daybreak Star Indian Cultural Center was completed. Of the 10,000 plus acres of surplus government land, the activists were granted 40. "500 acres surrounding the cultural center were used to realize John C. Olmsted's fantasy of an enormous park in the northern corner of the city, one that would connect via natural areas all the way down to the southern tip of Seward Park. The park was named after George Vancouver's ship, the same one that surveyed the land in 1792. The ship was called the Discovery.
Hey, isn't this where you told Mr. Donald to fuck you? Fuck you. I was just joking, though. Wait, what? That's the election. I'm gonna go along.
future, and what the future of this city, what the future of this country, and what the future of this world looks like. And I'm scared about it. It scares me to think about it. But because I worry that we don't know enough about our history. I worry that we don't know enough about the ways we hurt each other and the ways that the systems we fully endorse hurt people that we love or people that we should love. So all of that as the preface, my question for you is, are you hopeful about the state of the world in your adult life?
Yeah, that's a good one. Hopeful. And a lot of people might not be able to understand exactly what I mean when I say this at first, but I am actually. I work a lot with youth, and I love to mentor youth and try to guide them through middle school, through high school, even young adults. And the thing that I've picked up the most about youth is that they just need someone to teach them. When I listen to them, I'm how passionate they are about wanting to change the world at such a young age. I'm like, you know what? If all of the youth are going at the same rate and learning at the same rate, in 10 years, they're going to outweigh a lot of the other older voices that honestly aren't fighting for a lot of us, or a lot of the voices that don't seem to understand where we're coming from. And I think that as long as we're willing to be active and willing to teach people, willing to learn and receive criticism, I'm hopeful for the generation.
That's a wrap on Murray. Great!
Let's go!
Eli, don't cut. Still got to sleep.
Alrighty. We forgot to slate today. Yeah, stay there. We got to slate still. Alright. And then we're done. Then you're done.
What's the...
Alright. Cut.